Hi there, and thanks for checking out this video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to shoot amazing HD time lapses using only your iPhone. I'm also going to be giving some general time-lapse tips, so make sure you follow along even if you aren't planning on using an iPhone for this. Time lapses allow you to do a few really cool things. You're able to speed up the passing of time to show an event occurring that's usually too slow to notice. This creates a really eerie effect when you show something happening, such as stars moving across the night sky or shadows moving during the day, because these events usually are too slow to notice. I like to break time lapses into two main categories. The first category is movement through a frame, and this is basically any fluid motion such as clouds, the sun, or even stars occurring in the background of a shot, and in the foreground of the shot you have a stationary subject and you really emphasize the timelessness of this subject. The second category is movement within a frame, where the subject in the foreground moves away in a non-fluid way, jumping around the frame haphazardly. You can combine these two motions as well, creating a really cool look where the subject in the foreground is moving around and the passage of time is emphasized by the fluid background motion. The first step to shooting your time lapse is to set up. Now, you're going to need a few things for this. I have an iPhone, of course. You're also going to need a tripod, an iPhone tripod adapter. I picked this up on eBay for literally only a couple of bucks. And you're also going to need the Time-Lapse Camera HD app. I've tried a few different time-lapse apps, and this is by far the best for what we're wanting to do here today. Personally, I like to put my phone on airplane mode before I start shooting, and that way, the time-lapse isn't interrupted by any phone calls or text messages. Next, go ahead and fire up the Timelapse app and open a new project. Now you need to keep in mind a few key things when you're framing your shot. Make sure you use the rule of thirds. So you can see here, the horizon is approximately 1/3 from the bottom. Never center your horizon if you can avoid it. Also, the subject here, the grain elevator, is off to the side instead of being centered, and this just makes it look kind of a bit nicer for whoever's watching. Now, open up the settings of the app, okay, and you want to go where it says camera settings and make sure all of the automatic settings are off. Now go back to the camera settings after you've done that and make sure the timestamp is also off. If you really want a timestamp on this, it's much easier to put it on afterwards because you can't take it off after you've done it with the app. Another thing you really want to be aware of when you're shooting time lapses is for any type of distraction in the foreground. One really common one is any type of plant or vegetation, especially when it's windy. The wind will cause the plant to kind of wiggle around the frame. It's very jumpy and it's quite distracting. However, you can use this to your advantage if you're trying to emphasize whatever the cause of the distraction is, such as wind in this case. You can see here I'm trying to create time-lapse with a look of the timelessness of the prairie scene. So I want to show the fence, the field, and the clouds rolling over it. The plant in the front is wiggling around, and this distracts a lot from the shot. Here's two very similar shots, but without any vegetation or distraction in the front. You can see how much cleaner they are and how much easier they are to watch in terms of creating the look I'm trying to achieve. So keep this in mind when you're shooting your time lapses and avoid having any type of jumpy plants or jumpy movement in the foreground of your scene. Now we're going to need to figure out our frame rate. This is where it gets a bit tricky because this is something that really comes with experience. But just as a kind of general rule of thumb, if you're shooting traffic or people, you want to use a frame rate from about 1/4 of a second to a second. If you're shooting clouds, you want to use a frame rate of about 1 to 4 seconds, just depending on how quickly the clouds are moving and how quickly you want them to move in the final video. And if you're shooting something like the sun moving across the sky or shadows moving, you want to bump that all the way up to 60 or even 90 seconds. Now today, the clouds are moving fairly slowly, so I'm going to choose a frame rate interval of about 3 seconds. If you're not completely sure about your frame rate, you might want to shoot at a bit smaller of an interval, just because it's easier to speed the footage up than it is to slow it down afterwards. Now that I have my frame rate selected, I'm going to start taking the time lapse. Now this is where you really need some patience because this takes a while to do. So I'm going to go ahead and let this do its thing. So I've let this take a time lapse now for a few minutes, and so I'm going to go ahead and show you that along with a few other time lapses I've taken with this phone. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it really helped you to create your own stunning HD time lapses using only an iPhone, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and also share the videos with your friends to help me out in my attempts to make more videos for you to enjoy. Thanks and happy shooting.